Greetings, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another episode of the UK Connection. And my guest today, no, not just today, my guest each and every episode, of course, Simon Bray and Steven Reid. What's happening, fellas?
Yeah, not much. Loads, everything, nothing. Just ready to talk about a great album.
Yes, yes, indeed. I am ready to do that. The album, by the way, before we get to the beverage selections of the day, is Ride the Lightning. We're going to rank the songs on this classic album, and you folks have asked for Metallica over and over and over again, and the three of us felt this is, to us anyway, the classic Metallica album. They probably have a couple that you could say Master of Puppets, you could say the first album, Kill 'Em All. A lot of people will probably say the Black Album. To me, this is it. And I think this was the general consensus that this one probably sits a little bit above a couple of others. And so that's the one we're going to do. And I was just going to say this to the guys. It's like before I sat down to re-listen to this, I looked at all the track lists. I said, all right, I'm going to go rank them right now from memory because I've listened to this album a million times. And I ranked the songs. And then I went and re-listened a couple times. And then I was like, and I made a couple little changes. Not many, just a couple. So anyway, before we start doing all that, we have a bit of business to take care of. So Simon, I'll turn it over to you to start the little brief beverage discussion of the day.
Thank you. This week I've got Foster's from. No, that's not true. That is really not true. Um, yeah, I've this week I've got a beer from Lancaster, which is the county town. Now it's a city of Lancashire, and this is called Hoof.
Oof.
Hoof. It's a coffee milk stout. Oh
Oof.
yeah. Yeah, and I don't know about you. I like to read pretentious shite on the side of cans. Are we ready?
Yes.
A classic style brought to you by two Lancastrian artisans, Atkinsons of Lancashire. Yeah, that's it. Supply small batched roasted single origin coffee, which brings rich, bitter flavors that we balance out with lactose for a creamy, rich finish. Lactose, milk. Yeah. So I pre-poured it because you know what? While we're having the house reading up, I could still only find my Malta glass. The goblet will return soon. I'm going to have a sip. I had a sip before we started. I already know I like it.
Cool. I'm not a coffee guy, so that kind of gives me the oof. Take the H off, and that's kind of my, But
Nice.
it's good. Yeah.
Nice, but I feel like although this is definitely 7 o'clock on a Friday, on a Saturday, I feel like my plan of going to bed like I usually do straight after this, and I might be just going, "Ooh, hello, hello, hello." Sounds awake. Hello, how are you out there? Yay! So yeah, I feel it's so
Will
nice
you
to
be
get
going
into
to
it.
Will you be going to the fridge for another one?
Well, it's the only one I've got.
Oh, okay. All
I've
right.
got, I've got, obviously, I've got loads of Budweiser lined up, but beyond that,
I hope not.
no.
Alongside those couple of Stellas that you have left over from the party last night.
That's right. And the Kronenberg, they're all there.
There you go. All right. Nice to see you. Stephen, how about you?
Well,
The kick-ass
interestingly
Haken
enough,
shirt. Yeah, Alice
so,
Cooper Russian Haken today. Gotta love it. Very cool.
interestingly with the coffee thing, I loathe coffee. I hate it. And all the people that say, I don't like coffee, but I love the smell. No,
I'm with you.
coffee and beer. I don't mind that when it says coffee on the tin. It actually tastes okay.
You know what's
Hand
interesting about that
coffee.
statement? So my mother was just telling me a couple of weeks ago. My mother loves coffee. She drinks coffee every day, but she doesn't like coffee ice cream, coffee cookies, anything that's flavored like coffee. She despises, but she loves coffee. That
Well,
makes no
I
sense.
hate all of that, apart from a
But
beer
like
that says
coffee
coffee on
beer.
the side. I don't know. I don't understand it myself.
Weird.
Anyway, okay, so what I have, I'm back at the Perth Brewery again, okay, because they have a few to try. So this is Culloch Brewing. That's what it is, okay, with a fancy hog on the front. And this is, and I had to go and Google how to say this because this is in the Gaelic. Okay, so you pronounce this word, okay. Well, I Googled how to pronounce it because I don't know, I don't speak Gaelic, right? And bizarrely enough, the first thing that comes up is a video on YouTube of how to speak Gaelic. There's Gaelic and there's Gaelic, there's Scottish and there's Irish. And it's some French guy that's telling you how to pronounce these words. Okay, makes no sense at all. So according to him, this is pronounced douve. Okay, a douve. He said it twice, so I presume it's a douve. No idea. Okay. However, it
Simon and I
translates.
are like, all right, that's
Yeah,
whatever.
I don't know.
Works for me. I don't know.
Translates into black. There you go. So however you say it, it certainly is correct. And I had one earlier. And they're very good. They're very good. It is, as he nearly spells it, 7.3%. Same again. So
what is yours, Simon? Simon, what's your ABV?
Oh, mine's a pitiful 4.3. So
okay,
yeah.
I'll match you with that 4.3. So I'm not drinking Stella today, folks. Thank God, right? I decided, since I didn't celebrate St. Paddy's Day recently, why not go out and get some Irish beer and celebrate it whenever the fuck I want to celebrate it, which is today. So I've got an O'Hara's Irish Red Nitro, craft brewed in Ireland. Chill, pull, pour, pause, and enjoy. 4.3. So I'm going to do that. Hear that nitro? Woo! Did you hear that? Here we go, folks. Hold on. Let's take this all in, because there's nothing I like more than watching a nitro beer pour. Oh, lovely. Look at that.
It's going to be a long show, everybody. There's going to be complaints at the beer section's 10 minutes this week. And that's just the pour.
Look at that.
Yes, nice.
Cheers.
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 Little caramel and biscuity notes. That's what it says here, but I guess it kind of tastes like that. Yeah, good.
Well, the blurb on my tin says, store upright, serve chilled, pour carefully, contains sediment. There is no bullshit here. No bullshit.
All right. Drink and enjoy.
Yep.
All right. Who's going to lead us off with some factual information about Ride the Lightning?
I will, if you would like me to.
Go for it.
So, as everybody probably knows, this is the second studio album from Metallica. It was released on the 27th of July in 1984. It came out through Megaforce in the USA, but for us here in the UK, it arrived through the legendary metal label Music for Nations. Okay, although across the world, this album was put out by every label under the sun, it would appear. So it was Roadrunner in Europe, Banzai in Canada, Bernet, I presume, or Bernet Records in France, who deemed it fit to give it a green cover for some strange reason, which is now worth money, and Nexus International in Japan, and I presume other things, because I've got, I think, an 87, is it 87? 89 reissue here that's on Vertigo. So everyone's had a go at this album, because, of course, it ended up on Elektra.
Yeah.
Not long after it was initially
my CD
released.
is Elektra, but my original LP was Megaforce. Yeah.
So I would suggest that for most people, this finds us in the classic lineup of the band. So we've got James Hetfield, guitar and vocals, Kirk Hammett on guitar, Lars Ulrich on drums, and of course the much missed Cliff Burton on bass. The album was co-produced by the band with Flemming Rasmussen, who worked with Artillery, Morbid Angel, Blind Guardian, Pity Maids, and also with Mark Whittaker, who has worked with Exodus and Blitzkrieg. And considering the albums that they were involved with Metallica, not many others for these guys, strangely enough. Do you know, or at least not in this way anyway. They've both worked, but not in this kind of way. Chart placings for the album are remarkably difficult to work out. Okay, really very difficult. But I'll leave that for Simon to do the UK part first.
Okay. I always think, oh, Metallica are huge. They've always been huge. Even before they were huge, they were quite big, huge. How wrong I was. This album peaked at number 87 in the UK, on its second week on the chart. And that was the week 12th of August to 18th of August, 1984. You're probably wondering, what was number one that week? That's right. That's what I call Music 3. Fairly confident they're now up to past 100, aren't they?
I think they are. I think so.
And I own precisely none of them. But your top 10 was, that one. Sade was number 2. Bob Marley was 3. Tina Turner was 4. Your Mate Lionel was 5. Can't Slow Down. The Works by Queen was 6. Thriller 7. An Innocent Man by Billy Joel 8. The Pointer Sisters were 9. With breakouts, and the number 10 album was the original soundtrack to Breakdance.
Wow.
Also,
a lot of R&B and soul and pop in that.
Yeah,
I think 80, a lot of us tend to think like 84 is a big year for hard rock and metal, but I really think we were like a year away. Yeah,
UK and US are very different, as we'll find out.
Yeah, but I think even here, I don't think like hard rock and metal was like peaking big time until probably a year later. I think 85, 86, 87 were really the big years, maybe 88 too. 84, it's mixed, but yeah, I don't, because a lot of the albums you mentioned, Simon, were big here as well.
Were Chaz and Dave big in the USA?
Rabbit, 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 rabbit.
Yap, bunny, bunny, yap, 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 bunny, but no. No? Oh, disappointing, isn't it? What about Blancmange?
No.
Oh dear. Oh, Y&T, you must have heard of them. They were in the top 40, just next to Dio, the last in line. Roundabout, yes. No, yes, we're actually number 100 with 9012. Whatever. You see how I got my way out of that one? Roundabout, 90. Yeah, I'm really pleased with myself there. Roundabout, Metallica 87. 89 was eliminated by ZZ Top. And Duran Duran's Rio was just below them. So, some really, interesting charts there that I counted up, and much as it's not a massive festival of hard rock and metal, I've got about 18 of them.
Oh, wow. Very good.
I want to put on record that it doesn't include Spandau Ballet. No, so yeah, 87. I was very, very surprised that that was its peak. You would have even thought that reissues would have pushed it. No, there you go.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. The US is a similar story. Obviously, there was the kind of double release in the US with Megaforce and then Elektra. It peaked at number 100 early on, and that's difficult to know if that's because in effect it sold out initially and then fell away. Its peak in the US charts that I can find is number 48. When that was, I don't really know, because there's so many comings and goings, and it is quite, I don't know, it always fascinates me. I mean, Simon's spot on. In my head, Metallica at this stage were the biggest news in the world because they were already on the front page of all the magazines that I was interested in looking at. They were already, it would appear, rewriting the rule book. That's certainly the way that it was sold to me as an 11-year-old. They were just the biggest news in the world. So to discover that it never got above number 48 in the US, while somehow selling 7 million copies along the way. And that's the bit I always kind of find really difficult to square. I mean, has it just been that like 12 people have bought it every week since it was released? I don't know.
I think my guess here, when it first came out, it didn't do very well, but I think it slowly built momentum, but not enough to be a top 20 album. But then I think Master of Puppets did a lot better. This album kept selling, and Justice for All did even better. This album kept selling. The Black Album came out. This album kept selling. So I think the thing with Metallica is they kept getting newer and newer fans who then kept going back and buying the early albums, which kept all of them kind of on the periphery for the entire decade. So I think that's why. Because, yeah, when you think about it, 7 million copies and it only made it to 40-something here, something doesn't make sense there, right? But it's this slow, steady sales over a number of years. So not really that surprising.
Yeah. So for ease, I have gone for weaker release in the US charts because otherwise it was quite difficult to work out where to focus. And I read through it and thought, I've mentioned some of these albums before on the show. So I just picked out the rock and metal highlights from the charts, from the top 50 in the US on this week in July 1984. So number 1 is The Boss, Born in the USA. You've got Sports from Huey Lewis and the News at number 3. You've got Heartbeat City by The Cars at number 4. You've got Billy Idol with Rebel Yell at number 6. And still in the top 10, we've got 1984 by Van Halen. So, I mean, that's half the top 10, I think, is pretty respectable stuff,
Yeah.
if not better than that. And then moving on beyond that, you've got Rat, you've got ZZ Top. I'm in America with this one, so it's ZZ Top. You've got Night Ranger, you've got Scorpions with Love at First Sting. You've got Steve Perry with Street Talk. You've got Jefferson Starship. We've got Dio again. Twisted Sister with Stay Hungry. Rush, Grace Under Pressure. Motley Crue's Shout at the Devil, which is why I feel like I've kind of done something around this time before. And then the debut from Bon Jovi rounds out the top 50. At number 51, and I didn't think they had anything like that level of success in inverted commas, is Keep Your Hands Off My Power Supply by Slade. Now, in my mind, Slade did nothing that would ever have got to number 51 in the US charts, album-wise. So that in itself, especially with it being, although they were having a second wind over here about that kind of stage, it's also the unfashionable era of Slade. So that kind of really surprised me too. So yeah,
my guess is that was driven by the success of Come On Feel the Noise by Quiet Riot. So my guess is when that album came out, people were probably like, they were probably promoting, I don't remember this, but my guess is they were saying, oh, this is the band that, you know, Quiet Riot covered. You love Come On Feel the Noise. Here's the new Slade album. But I don't remember ever hearing anything played by Slade off that album on the radio. I don't even remember seeing that in the shops, but obviously people were buying it. So
makes sense. That does make sense.
Cool. All right, so we've got 8 songs. So what do we do? Three, and the final ones. We'll do that. 3, 3, and 2. Okay, cool. Simon, what do you got for your bottom 3?
Bottom 3. Well, you know, I think we're all wondering how many of these songs and where they fit on the Steven Reidinator, or whatever I actually call it. And I think they're all well worthy of at least a 7.32684. This is genuinely it's my favorite Metallica album. I think it's their best, and it's also where I got off the Metallica train. And I'm not entirely sure why I got off the Metallica train, but I did. Yeah, I know. And there came a point of 2 or 3 albums later where I really disliked them. Yeah, MTV Metallica, but this Metallica is the shit. It really is. And putting them in order wasted a lot of ink, lots of lots of scribbles,
A lot of
lots
changes.
of arrows,
Yep.
lots of So earlier today, my 8 was 1 and my 1 was 8 and everything. You know what I mean? So I'm going to go with what I last did, which was about 3 hours ago. 8. I'm going to go with Escape. Yeah. Yes, I am. And I like it. I really, really like it. Which is weird because I don't like much after this by the band. I really like everything on this. I think Escape kind of predates what's to come with Metallica. It's got that kind of we're edgy. Look at us, we're going towards Stadia. Come, here we go. Come this way with us. Come on. There we go. Big sound, big stuff. You know, if this was faster, it'd be even better. Why, Stephen? Why are you making that face? I'm just saying it could be doing a little bit faster, but
there's so much that's fast on the album.
I know. You just I just give them where I'm really ultimately going with this. The once you get to about 3 minutes 20, and if you are not stood there or sat there or driving in your car going, then you are I think dead is the word. You know, you really are just a fist pumping goodness. 7, I'm going to go with Trapped Under Ice, which to me kicks off the B side, and that's how I like to look at all recordings as an A and a B side. Yep, excellent. It's trashy AF, as the young people would say.
Yeah.
Lols. As the young people said 20 years ago. Yeah, I like it, but I don't think the band are that keen on this one either. No,
this is like one of the forgotten songs. Yeah, the band does not give a shit about Trapped.
I mean, does it have big riffs? Check. Does it have widdly solos? Check. Is it simple, thrashy? You know, keeping the fans on board stuff? Oh yes, it is. It is. It's just textbook thrashy. You know, textbook example of the genre. I really like it. Earlier this week, this was like right up there. I don't know about you chaps, but I take my research seriously, and I listen to all these albums that they sing up at least twice a day in the weeks up to this, which is nice because I have a commute to do it with. And earlier this was like much higher up. It's that good an album. You can move things around with it and enjoy it. But, 6. What for a very long time, because I have no friends, I like to call the call of Cthulhu. And I'm going to stick with that. But no, for yeah. When you are the only person that is like and you go to college with people who are not into the same not into the same stuff. You don't really have that chance to chat and say, "Oh, what's it called? What they like?" So Cthulhu. I'm going to go with Cthulhu forever. It's an instrumental. I think me and you, Pete, have discussed previously how awesome it is to have an actual proper instrumental. I was just like, normal stuff in the 70s and 80s. Let's have a proper instrumental that builds and weaves throughout. It doesn't have vocals, obviously, because it's an instrumental, but it's not called intro piece.
Yes.
Or introduction. And it's just a great piece of music. The bass is the thing for me. I like listening to it with the headphones on, just following that bass meandering up and down there. Again, earlier this week, this was much higher up. So, yeah, that's my 6.
Very cool. I'm shocked. As much as you love this album, I'm shocked you don't like Master of Puppets.
I cannot explain it.
Yeah, it's weird. For me, I look at those first 4 albums. They're almost all equal. To me, that's a bucket. They all belong together. I used to love the Black Album. I can't listen to it anymore. All the other albums, the last couple they've released, Death Magnetic, and I forget the name of the last one. I like them. I don't really listen to them much, but for me, the first 4 are like kind of untouchable. But
I think that that I went away to university and couldn't afford that much. Food was important.
As it should be.
It's a lack of dedication in my book.
I know. Oh, look at me. Food is obviously important to me, isn't it? I mean, come on.
I'm saying nothing. I cannot cast aspersions there.
I don't know. I would suggest maybe give Master of Puppets and And Justice for All another try one of these days, because I think you'd be pleasantly surprised. They're not much different than this album, in my opinion. But anyway, what do you got, Steven?
Well, what is interesting to me is that when I came to do this, because you already mentioned, Peter, that you kind of thought, well, this is what it's going to be, and then it moved. As Simon has said, he's gone through about 75 pens rewriting his notes because it's changed that much. This has not changed once for me in the whole way that I've done that. And yet still number 8 is Escape. Okay, so we're already aligned here. I believe this is one of the songs that Metallica basically just don't play live. And I don't think they ever really played it live. I think they don't particularly like it at all, in actual fact. I don't know. It's the only thing on the album for me, and I really like this album, and there's more to come on that later on, that just kind of feels a bit apologetic. It just doesn't have the same presence and kind of magnitude of the rest of the songs on the album. I mean, there is another song that has a bell that rings in it. This one seems to go. It just there's just something about this whole thing that just kind of makes you go. And it's the only song on the whole album that does that for me. And it is one of 2 that don't feature the writing talents of a certain Mr. Burton. And that is a theme, really, because it's therefore should be no surprise that my number 7 is also Trapped Under Ice, which is the other track that doesn't feature Cliff Burton. And that's not because he's not on it, it's just because I feel that other ones have got much more going on. And in actual fact, these are the only 2 songs on the album, if I remember correctly, that are written by the other core 3. So Hetfield, Ulrich, and Hammett. And that should have been worrying for going forward, but it obviously didn't turn out that way, thankfully. To me, though, Trapped Under Ice is still a ginormous step up from Escape. It kind of begins to show the kind of multi-part song dynamic that runs through most of the tracks that are on this album. And Kirk Hammett really, for a guy that's been in a band that's this successful and this guitar driven, doesn't quite get the amount of notice that he deserves, in my opinion. I think he's an excellent player. I think he plays with, I mean, great speed, but real touch. Really enjoy it. And the main riff in this is just huge, enormous. It's just a slab of metal, do you know? But yeah, it's still maybe that nod back to classic Nawabahum. It's still new wave of British heavy metal is what's going on here. And you can still tell at this stage, and probably still into Master of Puppets, that that's really what Metallica were. We all felt, and I definitely felt, that they were reinventing everything that I knew about metal. I mean, I was 11, okay, so I didn't know that much about metal, but I'd heard lots and lots of albums by that stage already. And you put this on, and you were like, whoa, it's so different. And it's not, is it really? It's really good, though. Really, really good. Oddly enough, though, these two songs, as Simon has mentioned, I mean, they start side two. It's side two kind of starts a bit, nah, but yeah, it's okay. I like Trapped Under Ice. I don't like Escape very much. So number 6 is the Call of Cthulhu. I'll say it differently to Simon, okay, because I had friends. No, I didn't. Still don't. Okay, but yes, Cthulhu, okay, because I'm well read, you know. I mean, closing an album out with a near 9-minute instrumental, that's brave.
Yeah.
But in many ways, it sums up everything that's come before it because it is deep, it's dark, it's atmospheric, and I think that it just kind of closes things out really, really well. It's a really good study in kind of slowly building different sections. There's riffs that hammer. There's that roaring kind of wah-wah infused bass sort of thing that's going on underneath it all. It is just so good. And nobody else was doing that kind of stuff at that point, to be fair. I mean, I'm laughing and joking and saying that they weren't really doing all that much different. They were reinventing, or at least they were embellishing a wheel at this point to an extent that nobody else had really done before. And same again, there's some great guitar work in this song. So yeah, my 8, 7, and 6, and I'm already getting a bit excited about how good it is.
So I've told this story before, but I'll tell it again. My introduction to this album was right after it came out. So John and Marcia Zazzulo, the head of Megaforce Records, Metallica's record label here in the States, they had a CD store or music store, record shop in New Jersey called Rock and Roll Heaven. Well, they decided to open up a Rock and Roll Heaven North satellite shop here in the Hudson Valley. Why? I don't know. So they picked a little town called Warwick, New York, which is out like in the middle of nowhere, a tiny little town, and they opened up the shop. So I remember one week, someone at school, because I was still in high school at the time, right before college, someone was like, oh, there's a new heavy metal record store that opened up in Warwick. Like, really? So we went driving over there on a Saturday afternoon. And I remember walking in, and they were playing this album. In fact, they were playing Fade to Black when we walked in, and there's John and Marcia, and I'd never met them before. And now they're like kind of like, you know, they're both gone, but they're both like these, you know, legendary figures. And I remember walking up to John, and I was like, what is this you're playing? He goes, new Metallica album. It's on our label, Ride the Lightning. And I bought it like that, took it home and loved it. And that's kind of started my whole love with this band. But anyway, how boring are we that my number 8 is also Escape? I will say I've never liked Escape. To me, it's the only dud on this album. It's not awful, but it's like it's really nondescript and not overly memorable and not very powerful. And I've thought so since day one. And I think that has always, for me, stopped this from being a 5-star album. Because it's not the rest of it is amazing, right? But Escape, bland, boring, lacking power. I would have done the song differently if I were those guys, but I'm not. Number 7 is Trapped Under Ice. Really good song, actually. Here's where it gets interesting, because to me, everything else that we're going to talk about is really, really good to great. And I think Trapped Under Ice is a fast-paced rager of a song. I agree with you, Steven. That middle section, fucking great. I mean, it just like goes into overdrive, and it's really cool. And I think that I don't need, and you got anybody hear any wah-wahs on this album? Yes, you do. Lots of. I will say, I like your comment about Kirk Hammett. I think for me, Kirk Hammett's taken a lot of shit over the years. And I think the reason why is partially his own fault, because I think he's gotten very formulaic with guitar solos, or, since the Black Album. And I love his lead playing on the first couple of Metallica albums. I mean, he took chances. It was exciting. He didn't just use the wah pedal. They were flashy. There were longer solos. And I just think over the years, he's playing it kind of safe. I think he did some great lead work on this album, actually, and even more so on the first album. And yeah, each album a little bit less, but a very good player, though. Doesn't get the credit he deserves, but he gets a lot of shit, which I think a lot of it's unwarranted. But anyway, but Trapped Under Ice, terrific song. And my number 6 is the Call of Cthulhu. We did not compare notes for this.
Nope.
Excellent instrumental. And you're right. Takes a lot of balls for a young band like this to finish an album with a 9+ minute instrumental, but man, it takes you on a journey. Cliff's bass is amazing on it. There's some great lead work. It's moody, it's atmospheric, it's heavy, it's menacing. And these guys probably at the time could have done a lot more instrumentals, and I would have been okay with it, because they do others. But yeah, this is one of the best ones. And I think Cliff Burton very, very much missed. And I agree with you. I think the songs that he co-wrote usually were among their best.
Yeah.
They kind of missed that when he left us. But but Call of Cthulhu could have been higher for me, but I was like, what's coming up that's like top shelf stuff. So yeah, we have all done the same here, 8, 7, and 6. So back to 7. I guarantee we won't continue doing that anymore, but we'll see. Number 5.
Yeah, let's diverge, shall we? My 5 is Fight Fire with Fire, which for a long time I thought that's definitely number 1. I'm a sucker for opening songs. I really am. It's brutal, sets the scene. How fucked must Lars be by the time he's finished with this one?
He's probably like, this is the hardest I'll ever play in my life.
Yeah, absolutely. And until we do that, until we play live with Lou Reed on Jules Holland. Fuck me, that was awful. Just really, really great opening song. And everything from this upwards is really, really great. I think. Yeah, I really like the others, but these 5 are just top-notch stuff. We can blame Metallica, I think. I appreciate that. Ozzy and Randy like to do the acoustic thing and then let's get going. But I think we can blame Metallica for all that kind of juxtaposition between here's something nice and acoustic, and then yeah. I think we can blame them for that. Yeah.
Gorgeous opening, right? Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. But it's just an absolutely fantastic opening song. It really kind of sets things up. My 4 is Ride the Lightning. Fist pumping opening, Mustaine credit. Oh yeah, quite power metally in places. You could imagine just standing there and like doing that thing like Joachim Kanz does, going come on. during that section, absolute laugh riot of a lyric. It's a seriously doomed protagonist, isn't it? Flash before my eyes, now it's time to die. Running in my brain, woohoo! Yay! Really, I don't want to die. It's comedy gold, isn't it? But just absolutely fantastic. It's just this kind of like wall of sound that no matter how or what you're listening to it, be it when you're walking down the street like I was today, or in the car like I also was today, you're thinking, whoa, this is awesomely loud and fantastic, which indeed it is. The solo's great as well. Just what? Wow, that's only 4. What's wrong with me? 3. For whom the bell tolls. Not AC/DC, but it's one of the best uses of a bell in a song. And I don't think that bells get enough credit, do you? I really think like there should be more bells in there. No, okay, fair enough.
Yes.
I wrote bass and 3 exclamation marks.
Yes.
Because again, look to the sky just before you die. It's the last time you will. And yeah, I never listen to this and think, well, I'm really depressed. I need to go listen to My Chemical Romance now. Um, I never get that. I think the reason this to me doesn't go that little bit higher, because to me it's the one that I hear occasionally out in the wild. And as you know, I curate my own life and my own songs, but this is the one that sometimes yes,
Where?
out and about.
Out and about? For whom
Yeah,
the bell tolls just arrives when you're out and about?
when you're
They
in the
play
mall
this
and
at
stuff like
concerts
that.
here. I always hear it on the PA. A lot of metal concerts here in the States.
Yeah,
That's a
exactly.
good thing, though. That's a good thing.
But
It's a
it
good
is, but
thing.
it's the one that you think, um, that's the one. If there was one that I've heard a little bit too much, this is the one.
Okay, it's just, I mean, when I walk into like W.H. Smith's, I don't hear din din boo dee nee nee nee. I don't hear this very often.
Something wrong.
I
Something
wish
wrong
you
with you,
would.
Stephen. Something wrong with you.
Well,
Yeah,
yes.
just saying. That's my excuse, and that's why it's not in the top two, because it's the one that I've heard, maybe even occasionally on Planet Rock on the radio when Mrs. Simon lets me flick the channels occasionally. I know.
Dial.
Obviously, still got to switch Phil Collins off. Let's just keep that one, going. Yeah, but it's a great song, and really could be higher. The top two are great. So the top five.
Yeah.
So,
Top
yeah.
five.
And that's the lovely problem here. So are the top five. The top five here are great. So my number five is Fight Fire with Fire. And we have not compared notes. We have not compared notes because I've also written here that if you'd asked me when this album first came out, this would have been hands down, no doubt about it, the number one. This was the one, and yes, you can blame, if you want to put it that way, Metallica for all this kind of nice little intro thing, and then everyone's done it since. I loved it when I first heard it. It was just like, wow, it's crazy. How could they do that? How could that beautiful little clean guitar bit just explode that way? How could that happen? Into the fastest riff in the entire world. Well, my entire world at that point, anyway. This song, it just absolutely knocked my head off when I first heard Fight Fire with Fire. It was just unbelievably powerful. And the backing vocals from Hetfield and Ulrich's drumming on this, it's just phenomenal. And I mean, you want a blistering guitar solo, it's here as well. Love it. And I love that just before the solo, it just takes a little step back for 2 bars. They slow it down for 2 bars, and it goes, and you're like, and off you go again. It's so powerful, absolutely magnificent. And we're at number five here. Okay. Number four for anyone called Simon who's listening is Ride the Lightning.
It's like countdown, isn't it? There you go. There's my
Yeah,
working
there's
out.
my working. Yeah, well, here's my working. Yeah, this is the other track that's left over from the early days. So this is Mr. Mustaine. It has a co-write on this one as he does elsewhere. And yes, again, it's another one where I kind of think, yeah, okay, you can feel the Nawabaham vibe that's going down here. There's definitely much that kind of feel about this song, but this time there's a kind of swirling, surging guitars. The guitars lean forward in this album. They push forward all the time. There's just such a force behind them, and there's a real bite. There's urgency. It's frenetic. It's so good. But then, cleverly enough, songs like this can also pull back. Do you know? And that's what makes this such a strong album. And certainly, as I'll come to in a bit, a strong section of an album as well. Do you know? There's some really good songwriting going on here. It isn't just, do you know what I mean, up and at them and charge. There's much more going on here. And Metallica got that quite rightly so. Reputation for kind of creating speed metal along with lots of Agent Steel and a whole lot of different things that were going on at the time. However, it's not really true when you actually sit and analyze everything that they were doing, because they didn't just play at a million miles an hour all the time. There's much more going on here. There's hints of progressive rock in here, or progressive metal, which was a term you would never have heard in your life at this point. because the whole album keeps you on your toes because you have a really heavy riff section. Suddenly things can pick up. Then there's a solo. Then you're in another section that you haven't heard before. Then the bass takes over. It's really, really clever. And it's worth mentioning as well that this is one of 4 songs on an 8-song album that's over 6.5 minutes long. Oh, yeah. This is not how metal was done, do you know? But not one of them do you kind of sit there and go, Every one of them is worth the length that they are. It's really, really clever songwriting. And I love it. And finally, we diverge. Number 3 for me, and probably controversially, is Creeping Death. Okay. I mean, when you were kind enough to ask myself and Simon to come on one of your daily shows quite some time back, we did the perfect album sides. Okay, I didn't go with this, but as you two gentlemen know, this was very nearly what I chose, because side 1 to me is just beyond reproach here. I can find no weakness, no chink in the armour, nothing to complain about. Creeping Death is the only one from side 2 that can force its way in there. It's the only one that kind of goes back and maintains that ridiculously strong level from side 1. And all of this album is really good, other than Escape maybe. It's arguably the best known song from the album. I think it was the only single, not that Metallica were ever going to be a singles band, but it was the one that I was kind of, that was the one back in the day that you would maybe hear kind of at gigs and various things like that. This was a song that people that didn't like. Play it, yeah. This was a song that people that didn't like Metallica or weren't into them, they knew this one. Do you know, it's one of James Hetfield's best barked vocals. And it is a real chanter, Creeping Death. You can't help yourself. You have to get involved with this song. It's that kind of album as well, to be fair. So yeah, this was one of the ones that really grabbed me the first time I heard this album. We may even have actually had, I think it was a 12-inch single, had the kind of demon thing on the front before we had the album, or around the same kind of time. I'm not sure.
Yeah, it was like a picture disc that came out here.
Yes, correctly. Yeah. That's right. And amazingly, I mean, nearly 40 years later, that's quite mind-blowing. That's really quite mind-blowing. I still think that songs like Creeping Death are just as impactful now as they were back then. That's how strong this album is to me.
Yeah. Funny how you mentioned the song lengths on this album, how they're, half of it is pretty lengthy by standards at the time. And I remember when And Justice for All came out, and there were people that were like, oh my God, the songs are so long on this album. And I'm like, yeah, have you not heard Ride the Lightning and Master of Puppets? There's plenty of long songs on there too. It's like, come on, man. It's like, oh, there's just 3 more songs on here that are that length. It's like, come on, we're nitpicking now. Anyway, my number 5, this is where the movement started happening with me. Now, my number 4 and number 5 kept going back and forth. And I changed them up twice yesterday, and then literally like an hour before we came on, I was listening to this again, and I was like, yeah, I'm going to switch them back. Number 5 is Ride the Lightning, title track. Love it. Great. It's heavy. It's really melodic. Kind of slower. It's weird how they just kind of rip your face off of Fight Fire with Fire. Then you get that song, which, compared to other bands might be really fast. But for Metallica at the time, it's a little on the slower side. But man, so many good riffs, constantly changing time signatures and things like that. And, you mentioned the whole speed thing. It's funny how you listen to Ride the Lightning today, and this album doesn't seem all that fast anymore. But back then we thought this was like, rip your throat out fast speed metal stuff. And which is crazy because, you listen to like, Heavy Metal Maniac by Exciter, which is way faster than this album. And that never seemed to get the credit that it deserved as being one of those, the great speed metal albums from its time. But I digress. But yeah, Ride the Lightning, terrific song, could be higher. But again, as you mentioned, guys, the top 5 are just so good here. You can change any day. My number 4 is going to be For Whom the Bell Tolls. Crushingly heavy, doomy, dirgy. Love the bell, love the riffs. It's great. The lyric is menacing and ominous, and that's one of those songs you go. I remember going to see Metallica a ton back in the day when they played that song. Everybody's like, it just man, just got you into that mood. Great song. Could be higher. And my number 3, again, probably surprising to many, is Creeping Death. It is a classic. It's great. On any other album, it'd probably be my number one. Unfortunately, there's two that I've always liked better, but Creep in Death is their early anthem. Played at probably every Metallica gig for years and years and years. Maybe they never took it from the set list. I don't know. I couldn't tell you, but it's just amazing and really is the saving grace for side two on this album. You had to have this on side two, right? Because I remember, like, as a kid, you turn the LP over to side B. And the first, I remember back in the day, I was like, Escape, I never really like. Trapped Under Ice, I kind of dug, but I was always waiting to get back to Creeping Death because you knew it was coming, right? You knew once it came, it's like, yes, now we're back in side A mode, right? We're back in that. So yes, that's my number three. You know what? There's probably gonna be people in the comments like it's got to be number one, and I wouldn't argue that at all.
Yeah, I agree.
That is great. It absolutely is. So let's see. Well, obviously our ones and twos are mine's gonna be different than you guys. We'll see how you guys finish out here. So Simon, what do you got?
I realised whilst I was listening to what you were saying, I think my copy of Master of Puppets is on cassette. My cassettes have been in the loft for a good 20 odd years. Unusually for me because, I'm nothing if not some form of Marxist construct. So my conspicuous consumption led me to rebuy practically everything again. But weirdly not Master of Puppets. I genuinely don't know why. Yeah, it's
Maybe
not
our
like I can't.
conversation today will allow you to reconsider that, Simon.
Not like I can't stream it either, is it? So
yeah, it's out there.
Yeah. Anyhow, my number two is Creeping Death. Peter, that's so sad.
I haven't done that in a while. Usually I haven't.
Your Stella lasted longer than that, didn't it?
Yeah, I guess I like that. Almost want to run down and grab another one.
Oh, please do. This is Fast and Furious. This is the point where I insert my but not Tokyo Drift joke. I've never seen the Fast and Furious films, but I believe that's the shit one. This is just excellent. This is just absolutely awesome. It's sinister, and I've spent much of the last few weeks since we decided we're doing this wandering around. I'm creeping there. Hi, how are you? You okay? Yeah, okay. Given what I do for a living.
Simon, can I ask why you were doing the country version? I'm creeping there.
Come on, little boy. Yeah, and this is actually the bit where I wrote down. You can
the Leonard Skinner cover.
Yeah. Do you know what? The only Metallica album I bought since on CD is actually, this is how much of a hypocrite I am, the Garage Inc. one, because Gary Rossington's on it. Yeah, there you go. Anyhow, this is where I wrote down, you can tell the Nawabum influence. So at some point, our notes were remarkable, but Creeping Death is just, woohoo, awesome. I think, they're great, but not quite as awesome as Fade to Black. What a segue that was. Now, see, I've written ballad, parentheses, exclamation mark, because it's not like Foreigner or REO Speedwagon, is it? It's not that kind of no. It really just can't remember the last time that Kevin Cronin wrote that great song about suicide or anything like did he? No, not really. It's nearly 7 minutes long, and that's always a good thing, don't you think? Giving it that time to breathe. It's also a bit of an outrider on the outlier, yeah, on the album. It's not like the rest of the album. It's a slow grower, builder, and the lead up to the solo, and then the actual solo. Just please go, yeah. Oh, there you are. So that's how I listen to my music.
Look away now.
Yeah, but did you see the interview with James Hetfield? I think in the last week where he says we're average musicians. Fuck, no, wouldn't like to see them if they're listen to them if they're any good, would you? So yeah, but Fade to Black is just awesome, really, really good, and definitely my favorite. It wasn't 2 days ago, but it is now. That is how this game works, isn't it? Yeah.
That's how definite it is.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, and that's why it's definitely number two. Fade to Black is my number two. Okay.
Good decision.
Well, I thought so. Yes,
you're right. You are so right.
Clearly. Yeah. I know that for many, the production on this album it's kind of nothing to write home about. I think that the atmosphere on this album. I mean, I know there's more dynamic sounding albums out there. I know that there are producers who would do more with it and would do more with Metallica in years to come. I just love the whole feel of it. And the intro to Fade to Black is just so strong. It draws you in, the clean guitars. It's just wonderful. And then there's just that little false start. Even now you kind of, oh, here it comes. And then there's a couple of bars before it does come in. I just really like that. Then the brass guitars just, oh, they kick it all down. It's just so involving. This is not a passive album. You either have to sing or you're kind of punching the air along with it or you're nodding away. You can't help but get involved with it. That is just so clever in the way that these songs are put together. And to me, it's no surprise. I don't know if the band still do, to be fair. It was a long time since I last saw Metallica. We're going back to, saw them twice on the Black Album tour. So long time I've seen them. They're great both times in my head. But they always used to come on to The Ecstasy of Gold by Ennio Morricone from The Good, the Bad and the Ugly. You can hear that in here. That influence is writ large in this song. I did the guitar tone and that kind of epic build. It's in here. They're blatantly telling you, we love this stuff. And I really like how they metal it up. It really evokes all that kind of feel and atmosphere. It is really, really good. But at the same time, I look in this song now with hindsight. Obviously, I couldn't at the time. It's kind of the big brother of One from And Justice for All. You can see they've almost taken this blueprint as if it isn't almost perfect in itself and looked at One and thought, you know what, we could do that slightly differently and come away with something that is remarkably similar and yet its own thing completely. And
That
it's
light
now,
and shade thing they did
yes,
very well early on. Yeah.
even some of the like the little clean touches, you hear them and you go, wow, that's really quite close to what they did on Fade to Black, and you can kind of feel them go. I wonder if that conversation kind of took place at some point when they go, do you know what? Could we do that even better? To some they maybe did, to some they maybe didn't. Either way, I think they're both great songs, so we win both times round. Well, there you go. My number one, which is clearly not anybody else's here, don't know if it will be in the comments, is For Whom the Bell Tolls. And there was never any contest for me that this was going to come out on top. I think this is Metallica at their very best. Unlike that clank on Escape, the bell does just ring out here. There's dread and there's purpose. The arrangements are fantastic on this song. I still, all these years later, I listen out for where the cymbal hits after the bell and all this kind of boom, and it's so evocative. It just pulls you in so much. And yeah, I mean, I know that Lars Ulrich has become a bit of a joke, and he's admitted himself he's not the best drummer in the world and all this kind of stuff. I get all that, but a really good drummer plays what's right for the song. Man, oh man, is every beat, every fill, every snare roll, every cymbal hit in this song perfect. Now that may have been the band's decision along the way. I don't care. It's just so good. And yeah, back in the day, I used to play in bands. I loved covering a song because I loved playing all these little bits. It was just so good. I think that the little guitar motifs from Kirk Hammett are just perfect in here. Do you know, on an album that often goes for the throat, it's another exercise in patience and slow payoffs. And the whole song kind of does that. It ebbs and flows. It segues from one part into another. And I really love that. And all of side one does that. One song finishes as the next one begins, and it doesn't feel like a, whatever it is, 25-minute long concept album. They feel like four individual songs. And yet, that little space between the two where there's no real silence, or like one fades out as the bell starts to toll, is just as important as the song that follows it. It takes you on that journey. You can't turn side one off. You can't say, I'm going to listen to Ride the Lightning today. You need to listen to those four songs together. And it's really, I love an album that does that to you. I make no apologies for this being my favourite Metallica album. There may be better ones out there, but this is my favourite. And it's my favourite for many of the reasons I've spoken about as part of this. I just think it's really good. And I love it to bits. But yeah, For Whom the Bell Tolls is my number one.
You make a good point about the segue between the songs. I think like on For Whom the Bell Tolls, I love that long drawn out ending. It's like dun dun
Yeah,
dun dun dun, and Kirk is like wow, doing all the whammy bar stuff, and then it slowly, so you hear the bell, it slowly starts to fade, and then the acoustic guitar comes in, leading into
yeah. It's just I love stuff like that. I love it when there's so much thought being put into the construction of the album. Yes, they wrote some great songs. Let's make an album.
yeah, meant to be listened to that way.
Yeah,
It's a lost art these days, people.
often is. Yeah.
All right, so for probably like 30 years, maybe a little more, my number two today was my number one. And it goes back to that moment where I walked into Rock and Roll Heaven North and there was Johnny Z in front of me playing air guitar to dig-a-din, 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 dig-a-din. And I was like, oh, I love Fade to Black. Love Fade to Black. For many years, it was my favorite Metallica song. I think, I was like, it's kind of a ballad. It's heavy. It's proggy. It's folky. It's everything, right? There's great. There's Herculean guitar solos in it. There's riffs to die for. It has everything. It's got the smoother vocals. It's got the harsher vocals. I love Fade to Black. I think it's great. And when I sat down to do this, I was like, as much as I really, really love Fade to Black, in more recent years, something about Fight Fire with Fire has just really kicked my ass. And I realized it's one of the, if you guys watched the Hudson Valley Square show the other night, it's one of the great album openers of all time.
Yeah.
I mean, it just kicks your ass and gets you set for the whole rest of the album. And it's just such a juggernaut track from them. I love it so much, but it's close. I will tell you, there's not much that separate my number one and two, but I knew going into this that those two, that was the easy part of this. The bottom two were the easy part of this, and then there's everything in the middle that was kind of difficult. So, but we started off weird. We were at the 8, 7, 6. We're all the same, and then it went to shit from there. It went divergent in all sorts of different directions. But we're really cool. I mean, this is a great album. It's just a great album. So for all of our viewers who've been suggesting we do Metallica in this concept, I'm glad we picked this because I haven't listened to this in a little while. So it was actually cool to hear the whole thing a couple times. And yeah, good stuff. Good stuff.
I have listened to it way more than I needed to for this exercise. Because, yeah, as happens with music, you listen to new things, you listen to old things that you've bought, or we're doing shows or whatever it is that we're preparing for. And every now and again, you pull out an album, you put it on, and you go, wow, that is just so good. Well, this is just so good.
Yeah.
It really is. Really
well, good, because as well as you know it, right? Because you've been living it for 30 or 40 years. When you take a break from it for a while and then you go back and revisit, it's all of a sudden it's kind of fresh all over again. It's still, every note, but you're like, it's like it soothes your soul. It's like, yes, now I realize what I've loved about this album since 1984, right? That's totally what happened here with this. So even though, Metallica for me is one of those bands I don't often listen to all that much anymore. But when I do listen to, especially the classic albums, I'm kind of like, yeah, now I know why, for a few years in the 80s, Metallica was my number one favorite band. That's the only time since like the late 70s, the only time that either Deep Purple or Black Sabbath were not a favorite band of mine was probably from 1984 to 1990, maybe, when Metallica was my favorite band.
Okay, I did not know.
Yeah, they had that window. For a handful of years. This was my band, and then I moved on to other things. And I still love the early stuff, though. I still do, and I can appreciate some of their more recent stuff. Lulu notwithstanding. And
yes, yeah, I think that everything they've done, yeah, maybe without Lulu, has some real merit. There are some great moments on it. But there are great moments on the latter day stuff. And in my humble opinion, I know that there will be people that still really like what they're doing now. I think the last two albums have been much improved.
Yeah, I like it.
That I can get excited about them. To me, the first three are gold, and then On Justice for All, they become something slightly different. I would suggest at that point. And I was still on board, massively on board. I loved the Black Album when it came out, and a bit like yourself now, Peter, I find that a bit of a tough trek. I don't actually think I've got a physical copy these days. which I probably need to rectify because it's better than that, in actual fact. But that was an album that hit saturation point for me, both through my playing of it, but also, I mean, you couldn't move for Nothing Else Matters and Enter Sandman, things for a period of time that have
a long time. Yeah,
blunted their attack to a ginormous extent.
Yeah, I can't listen to
anyway.
Blackout. Can't do it anymore. Just can't. I basically, it's funny because I put on a couple of months ago, I was at the gym and I dialed up on my iPod. Yes, I still listen to an iPod, people. I dialed in And Justice for All, and about like maybe halfway through it, I kind of got a little fatigued with it. As much as I do really love it, because it's a lot. And Justice for All is a lot to take in. It's so heavy though, but it's like slower. But man, when one came on, woo, I was off to the races. I still think that's terrific, absolutely terrific. That's so good. There's a lot of great tunes on that album, but it's a lot, So anyway, Simon, you want to give everybody a preview of what's happening in 2 weeks? We're going to Germany, aren't we?
Oh, we are, aren't we? Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah, yeah. I accept your challenge.
Oh,
he is so clever. I knew we kept him around for a reason. He is so clever.
You see what I did, though? We are going to do favorite, least favorite. I've already got my cheat sorted out for this one. For the catalogue of Accept.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right. It'll be interesting. I was actually thinking about this last night. I was like, it could be kind of predictable, but maybe not. Maybe I'm just anticipating that. So we'll see. I have a feeling it's not going to be. Maybe for me it might be, but I think you guys are going to surprise me.
That to me also depends on what we class as predictable. There you go. Because there are different eras of the band, and I think a lot might depend on who came in where, as in where we listened to them.
It'll be predictable for me because I've been listening to them since the early 80s. So spoiler alert, that's probably will add to it for me. But that's why I think these two gentlemen are going to, mix it up a little bit. So it shouldn't.
Or not.
Or not. I don't know. Yeah, we'll see. I don't know.
Yeah.
That's what's always fun about this. We don't know. We don't compare notes. I never know what they're picking. Ever.
No. And I have nothing written
down. Even though they do that whole Twitter thing all week long, I'm sure they don't give anything away on Twitter for those of you who
No, we do not. We make a great effort not to. We're not clever enough to give anything away.
So there you have it. So we have favorite, least favorite albums of Accept in 2 weeks, plus a wild card or 2 or 3. You know how that goes. And then I think we'll circle back with AOR Melodic Rock after that. All right, is that what we got coming up after that? We have a whole bunch of
we usually do another classic album in between, but we've not discussed that yet.
Right. Yeah. We've got all sorts of stuff lined up for you guys. So stay tuned for another episode of the UK Connection 2 weeks from this Saturday. It's Saturday, right? That's right. Yes. Simon. And this is on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook. We're on YouTube all together all the damn time. Please subscribe if you haven't already and click on that notification bell so you get alert of all of our content as a post. And please do hit the like button before you leave. We also have the links down below for our merch page and our Ko-Fi page. And stay tuned tomorrow for ranking the albums. What it is, I don't know, but stay tuned anyway and you'll find out. And see you in 2 weeks here on the UK Connection. For Simon Bray and Steven Reid, I am Pete Pardo. Have a good rest of the weekend, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.